So that is one issue that will spill over to 2025. That's the tax reform. The other issue that we will be taking with us in Nigeria to the new year is the budget. We know that currently, while the lawmakers are on recess, but I think committees are meeting to deliberate on sections of the budget, and perhaps they will be able to have it passed as proposed or by the end of the year. We have a couple of days left. Now, the expenditure for that proposal of the appropriation bill is at 49.7 trillion naira. Revenue expected 34.82, so of course that leaves deficit of about 13.1 trillion naira. The highest allocation goes to defense and security, more than 4 trillion naira. But this morning we're looking at the social services, that's health and education. So health has 2.48 trillion naira, while education is 3.52 trillion naira. Now let's find out how expectant players in the industry, in that sector, social services, especially health, what they think about this and how best we can use this amount that has been allocated to both health and education. I think that's a combination of almost 6 trillion naira. We have to discuss this. The chairman, Save a Life Group, Dr. Richard Okoye, joins us virtually from Port Harcourt, South Nigeria. Dr. Okoye, good morning and welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So are you happy with these numbers that we have? 2.48 trillion naira for health, 3.52 trillion naira for education. Combined, we have almost 6 trillion naira for the social services sector. Are you happy with the numbers?
Yeah, currently we can say that we appreciate Mr. President for at least when he talks about figuratively and in volume, that seems to be the highest given to the health sector. But if you also look at it relatively, it still falls within the usual, unquote, status quo of between 4 and 6.1% of the budget, and which all fall below the 2001 Accord, which actually recommended 15% to healthcare sector. You know, but beyond that aspect is also the aspect that has to do with how is this budget, being implemented over this period of time. You find out that if you look at the breakdown of the budget, particularly in the past 10 years, you find out our recurrent expenditures used to consume the more, and our capital expenditure tend to center on the aspect that has to do with, now I'm talking about health sector because little on that particular education, but health sector, you talk about the issue of building infrastructure, renovation, the issue of utility, mobilization and all that. But the primary individual that is actually to drive this very engagement is being neglected over these years. And that's why it seems as if our healthcare system has been suffering despite the money and the volume of money almost always been budgeted. And I put it this way, that when it has to do with healthcare, healthcare is not infrastructure as we normally think about it. It's not about equipment. Because if you talk about infrastructure versus equipment, I give it to the current Senate President, Senator Fabio. He built a born specialist hospital, which ought to have been said to be the center of medical tourism. It never worked out as he anticipated, because the issue that has to do with healthcare is a person. And who is that very person? Let's not take it in the ground of professional nepotism, but a doctor is who determines whether a place can be called a hospital or health center. The maximum you can call a huge infrastructure without a doctor is a maternity. In that particular regard, therefore, it becomes imperative for us to know that, yes, all those things we do are essential, but woman capacity, which unfortunately we are not only not paying attention to them, we are losing them. And the doctors leaving the country, all the other health workers likewise, and it's appearing to be normal to us is quite a tragedy that is in the making. I put it something very clear that will be able to help us if there be need for supplementary budget. You know, I heard the Honorable Minister for State and Salako actually pointing out that the money has to do for mobilization or employment of more doctors and other things. And I asked myself a question, where are the doctors that will be employed? On the 15th of October 2024, University of Benin Teaching Hospital actually called for interview for doctors. And do you know that this can be fact-checked because the CMD actually was there and can even be reached? In that department that used to be O&G, that obstetric and gynae, you used to have up to 100 doctors that can even apply. Only 4 doctors came for that interview. There was none, not one in pediatrics, 12 of them in surgery. Now, a number of them don't even have primaries. And do you know the implication of this? The implication is that when you talk about life expectancy of any nation, is boiled down to mother and child. Now, the pediatric is 0. O&G, which of course told to take care, they are not available. The professors we have today and senior consultants we have, they are in different universities doing the work of a house officer, of a reg. 6 years down the line and going to about maximum of 10 years, the current set of professors and the senior consultant will be out of the system. Who actually get those things done? Recently, we also proposed, let us get more medical students. So practically most of our schools are now doubling their intake. But who trained those people? If we don't do something in the aspect of understanding that very foundation, it discovered that at the end of the day, we will churn out a lot of certified and licensed murderers, because medicine is not just a bookwork, it is something that has to be practically applied. Our budget, unfortunately, has been centered on the issue of contracts. The 2.4 trillion is huge money in the sight of anybody looking at it. And what do we normally spend on? We're gonna buy a medical equipment. The person who is gonna use this medical equipment, no budget to train such individual to be able to, at least even if it's an upgrade. And at the end of the day, budget we've made, a contractor will supply equipment, and the doctors on ground or people that will use it have no clue about how this. They will say, no, you know, let's say tell you how this is being used. As soon as they get into that first touch, it is done. The machine is done. So we don't see, it's not a problem of equipment that is our problem in healthcare here. If you get to most teaching hospitals in Nigeria, friend, you're gonna get a lot of sophisticated, I don't want to undermine that, sophisticated, very good equipment, but all of them are down. It is not a function of you having equipment, it's not a function of you having a hospital, you build one gigantic place. Emphasis should be given to that particular dimension, which is the core person driving this. Otherwise, millennial development goal, we failed in it, and now we have universal health coverage 2030, 5 years away. What exactly is our position? So that's why I want to bring attention of the National Assembly, as I'm going to deliberate on this, to consider the issue that has to do with empowerment. How do we secure the ones we have currently? It's a very big task, because even if you have more doctors, more medical students, as soon as they are graduating, they are following the same path. We must find a solution, and that's why we have been able to, in line with the committee recommendation of technology, to be able to make the universal health coverage, which says that healthcare should be available and accessible and affordable to all and sundry. But those in rural communities, the impediment they also pointed out.
All right,
Most
Dr.
of the
Okoye.
have been able to attend to, yeah.
So, Dr. Okoye, from what you're saying, it does sound, the picture is bleak, unfortunately. So, do you think that the focus or the priority now should be getting those who have left? We know the Japa syndrome is a major one that's dealt with us, has put us in this condition. Or do you think that we should look into university teaching hospitals, but I mean, as you noted, who's also training them? Which way do we look as a way forward?
Yeah, in terms of the way forward, one thing is that poverty makes you to lose friends. When you are rich, you get more friends. Any country that is that suffered economic depravity, we lose essentials. That's why most poor people have brain drain. We can't change it as it were. But one of the things I can tell you is that from my study of doctors, they are not too ambitious. A doctor who uses his brain and is mobile, fundamentally, if we could be able to make basic needs of life being met, I can tell you 30% of most of the people that are out there can come back to Nigeria. It's not that I have a number of them. I brought some people down here also. So I have a clear understanding that something could be done in that particular way. But it's not an easy task because our economy and our naira is not competitive. Contrary to what we used to know before, that a doctor may be in Nigeria, doesn't know what's going on in the United States. But here you can be in a village and know how much a doctor is being paid in New York. Be that as it may, we may not pursue that. Mr. President came up with something that you passionately call it renewed hope budget, and also emphasize on even pharmaceuticals to be able to reach out to those people. But to solve this very problem, as Millennium Development Committee actually, Universal Health Coverage Committee actually recommended, is technology. This we have been able to build, that we have succeeded in digitalizing or downloading the brain of a medical doctor, the brain of a nurse, of life scientists, and also of the pharmacist. Why do we do that? In a place where there is no doctor, what do we do? And how did we achieve it? I started that very project in US in 2016. It was said that there's nothing anybody to give because the data is not available because doctors' terminology is usually very complex. And what did we do? We, first of all, most terminologies in healthcare, we bring it down to the common man's language. And we took off that very issue that if a patient has a problem of fever, we ask you those questions in your own language. We even made the languages of native language of Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. But how does it happen? Like what I do right now, Save a Life Port Harcourt is the first fully digitalized hospital currently. How do we achieve it? Patient can be in position to book an appointment and answer those questions. Doctor ought to ask. He will not miss any of those ones so that not to make a wrong diagnosis or misdiagnosis. When he answers those questions in their own language, they send it in. A doctor can see it. So the question can be, Madam, you say you have fever. You vomited 3 times. You stood this. Yes, no. If the doctor confirms it, the system helps the doctor to make the differential diagnosis. It helps the doctor to be able to find investigation where applicable to ask for this patient. If there are drugs, it could also be able to help out to tell the doctor, this is what is international standard of practice that is obtainable. So the doctor can guide the doctor. That is the first EMR in the world that helps the doctor to do the right thing rather than just giving to the doctor to do whatever he wants to do.
All right, Dr.
So for
Okoye.
the rural communities,
yes,
which is quite critical, for those in rural communities, there is impediment. No doctor there, no power, internet availability. And that's one of the key things we have done. Today we have computer, it's a personalized computer, customized. We design it with a Synca technology. we discovered that most of the telecommunication companies, NTN, Glo, and all that, they've gone to most of our rural communities. So we designed a computer that uses SIM card rather than waiting for internet and all those kind of stuff. So with those people there, in a community where there is no doctor, no problem, they could answer those questions that are of professional. Once they answer it in their language and send to a doctor in the city, the doctor can, if possible now, telemedicine is to ask the question, he say you have this, you have this. The doctor can send the drugs to the, what we call local chemist or pharmacy. Over there, the people in that community can buy the drugs, take it, and we can review. We use it for pregnant women. If you have a look at this thing you see here, is one of our products. It's a BP apparatus. It has a SIM card. It has also a battery that can last up to 1 month. You don't need to recharge the battery. So those ones in rural community, as they take their BP over there, we can see in the city. For a woman that have issue of hypertension in pregnancy, like preeclampsia, and all those things, we will allow them to die because no doctor, and treatment of such is a multidisciplinary. So when they check their BP over there, a doctor in the city can see on time and can be in position to help her.
All right, Dr. Okoye. All right, Dr. Okoye. Yeah, well, that sounds beautiful, and we do hope that really, you know, it can get, especially to the rural dwellers, because those in the city, they have access to not even the primary but secondary facilities all around. But the problem actually comes from the rural, and that's where the issue of life expectancy and all of that also comes in. But thank you so much for your time, Chairman, Save a Life Group, Dr. Richard Okoye, and well, we wish you the best.
Thank you. My pleasure.